Hey folks, finally back with an update on this buggy. This is an Arrma Typhon that I decided to go all out and just pretty much custom tune absolutely everything for bashing. It was a TLR, I wasn't really going to race it, so I ended up going the buggy way. Now first of all, let's take the lid off of this. Right, I did do a few updates when I first started. This is the final edition as to what I've done and what I'm going to be doing. Anything else that changes on this will really just be due to breakages, just replacement parts. So we have, starting off with the very bottom here, we have an M2C chassis. This is 4mm thick, 70-75 grade aluminium, or aluminum if you're in the States. Bolted to that I have got Vitavon casings front and rear. These hold the differentials. Differentials front and rear pretty much run the standard. I have upgraded the fluid in them. There's 30k in the rear, 60k in the front. Centre differential, put a metal case on it just to strengthen it a little bit, and it looks brilliant as well. I'm running 500,000 k in there, and that's enough to keep the front wheel from spinning too much when it lifts at the front, and it allows a wee bit more drive to the rear. Other wee bits and bobs to get together, we have CRCU, or custom RC upgrades for the braces that mount the front and rear bulkheads to the chassis. Also CRCU for these little brackets and bobbins on here as well. I am using Scorched Parts for titanium top plate on here, the titanium ackerman plate just underneath, titanium shock towers front and rear. Now on the front and rear I have got them upgraded for these wee bolts. These are M2C at the rear and Scorched Parts ones at the front. Don't ask why, but they're a slightly larger bolt on them. They shouldn't break as easily. Just titanium pin in the front of this and rear suspension holding the shocks on. Shocks are pretty much standard. The only thing I've changed on them is there's a set of Kraton springs in the front and the rear, just because it was just a little bit too saggy. Now there's plenty of movement in it, it's nice and soft. I have also upgraded the CST on here. These were about 500 factory and not enough in some of them actually. This has now got 1000 CST in the front and rear of the shocks. It seems to give, it's a nice smooth action anyway, it's not bouncing. I haven't run it in like this yet, so I don't really know how it's like on landing for jumps, but I will soon find out. Scorched Parts have also supplied me, let's see, drive shafts for the front, the centre, there, and also on the rear. You can see down there, you can see at the back here. These are a lot lighter. I think you save about 3 grams of drive shaft or something like that, but the reason I got them is they're a whole lot stronger. Other wee bits I've got to add in here, Basher Queen for the ESC mount and also for the servo mount here. This allows me, I use this in my Kraton, this allows me to sort of file a little bit on the mounts here. I'm trying to get focus. Just where these bolts are, file a little bit of the carbon fibre away. It allows me to move the servo back a little bit out of the way, which means I can get access in and out quite easy to get that drive shaft in and out. It is literally just a millimetre or so in it. Hot racing supplies for servo arms, also the steering bracketry down here. These are all on little bearings as well. The servo I'm using, this was an AGF one that I actually got for the Kraton, so it's a wee bit overkill at 45 kilograms. It's pretty fast, solid. It's lasted for I put about a dozen sets of batteries through this in the building of it, where it was still a TLR, and it's been absolutely fine on impacts. Motor I'm running is, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Xeron 4274 motor at the back. It's 2250 kV. There's also the little ESC that comes with this. I can't remember the name of this, but I'll put it in the comments below. I've upgraded the fan on this because I was finding it was clicking off with a wee bit of heat, but I did actually have quite a big cog on it. It was running a 21 tooth at first and then it was flying. Put it to an 18 tooth and I got probably about 12 minutes out of it before the light started flashing on the ESC. So now I'm down to 16 tooth. It is still fast. These wheels and tyres are a lot bigger than the standard buggy ones. These are Prolines, they're belted so the tyres don't balloon at high speed. They've got little alloy centres in them. They're motocross style tyre grip on here. They say it's motocross inspired anyway. Call them the Badlands. If you go into Proline's site, I think it's MX 2.8 they call these. Also from Scorched Parts, the motor that I've got is getting mounted on here. This is Scorched Parts own, they call it a rotoloc, I think it is. It just allows you to bolt your motor on, which you can see there. You can see two of the bolts. There's actually three bolts. Hang on, zoom in. There's actually three bolts holding the motor on, which is a bit better than the two bolts that you get with the Arrma. Didn't really like that. It did go loose a couple of times, which is weird because it's a lighter motor that's on here. The Kraton one I run is a 1650 kV. It's like a tin can compared to this. It hasn't gone loose once, but then it is sitting quite tight down on the chassis, so I think that's probably, it's stopping it move about a wee bit. On this one sits off the chassis a wee bit more. I think there's a bit more play in it. I was getting the bolts going loose in here. Happened twice on me despite putting thread lock on them, so I've changed this over. It's a far better motor mount. It's a lot broader where the footprint is. The actual alloy mounts to the chassis are a lot wider there. Like I say, there's the three bolts that hold onto the motor. You can also adjust your settings for, you can see there it's perfect. It's a lot easier to set that. It's quite difficult on the other one because you move it in, you get what you think is a perfect set, and as soon as you start tightening the bolts it moves it slightly, and it's usually 2 or 3 shots before you're finally happy with it. This, just crank down these bolts here, that one there, and there's one underneath at the bottom there, and it's good to go. I did use this original Arrma cable mount because it was just neater. Got the cables pretty much happy where they are, they're nice and neat there. Tied in, this is for censored motor, so I've tied that little cable in just underneath there, just with a wee support and a separator, and that'll just keep it in out of the way. Quite happy with how all that's sitting there. Other parts I've done to this, let me see, I have replaced the rear wing mount on here because the Arrma one broke. I've also replaced the spoiler because that broke. I've got the front bumper on from RPM as well, so the front and rear I've got the protection on there. I've also got underneath, there's a chassis protector. That's from, I can't remember what they call them, Arrma Skins UK. RPM scratch guard underneath the back there. I've put the sticker on the bottom here, chassis protector, simply because it is an aluminium chassis, so it is going to get some abuse. They get scratched up quite easily. This should hopefully save a wee bit. The one in the Kraton is titanium, it doesn't mark or scratch. Well, it scratches a wee bit, but it's pretty hard to damage it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we've done on here that's different. I did spend quite a lot of time since the first video re-shimming everything. So you get a packet of shims in your Arrma trucks these days. They use it for in the side of the little diff when you're setting it in here to try and move it towards the pinion a wee bit more. It sort of tightens things up. They don't give you enough of them for a start off because one, the ones that they've got in here are never enough, and two, they're also really handy for setting the shims on here so you don't get too much play. Basically pop out the bearing here, put the shim in behind it, put this back in, see how much play you've got. You can play about with it. I think I've got about 3 in it on the front ones here. On the back there's about 2 on each side on here. That same shim also fits in the inside here. Behind the bearing. It means that you don't get too much play or movement on this. It holds the pinion in place against the diff, stops you grinding cogs basically, so you can go through quite a lot of them. Arrma never do seem to give you enough shims. Like with this little kit here, they give you 4 little shims to mount the little cogs on. I ended up putting 12 in total. There just wasn't enough there to send off and get more, otherwise there was a whole lot of play in that diff, and even with the 500,000 you could feel it loose. I added more and more, got to the point where I was quite happy with it, then put the fluid in and it's fine. There's no movement in it, it moves freely, it doesn't move loosely then like that. Trying to think of anything else I've got to cover over here. One wee thing I've done with the battery tray on Arrmas, especially on 6S, when you're running a 6S battery, there's an awful lot of weight there. You're usually carrying, by the time you get the battery and all the rest of the bits and bobs here, near 1 kilo in weight. Arrma rely on just putting a couple of little screws through, and it's just plastic it's screwed into it. It doesn't always hold well. I mean, don't get me wrong, I haven't heard they've put more screws than what they used to do, but what I have done is, you can probably see if I point it down the side of here, that's a little captive nut. And what I've done is I've just melted it in to the actual tray itself. Drill a hole out first. You need to drill about a 4mm hole for the captive nut to slot into. Put a longer screw through this and heat it up. Don't heat it too much, but heat it enough to melt the plastic. Use the screw to find the hole on the inside of here and push it all the way through to the other side of the chassis, and then let go with the pliers. You find that what they do is they sit in nice and neatly there. Let's try and get this out of the way. I think I zoom in on this. Hang on. There we go. Sits in nice and neatly there. There is always a little bit of a bump in it, and for that reason I always make up a little plate. So this is just modeller's plastic sheet. You get it from any model shop. I use one that's 0.5mm thick, which means you can just build up layers. So there's 3 layers of that, with the little holes cut out to give space for where the screw is. And then there's a top layer just so the battery's sitting on something nice and flat. I have seen people do this modification and the bolts are still sticking up a wee tiny bit. They'll put a bit of neoprene in it and hopefully that, hope that's going to be okay. But on a big impact, that neoprene's not going to hold. You're going to get a little bump, and you don't really want to be hitting this type of battery with anything at all. Technically it's quite explosive, lots of flames come out of it, you'll torch your car. I think I've pretty much covered everything. I've got M2C hinge pins, holders front and rear on this. I forgot about them. They're hidden in there. Because I'm using the M2C chassis, it all fits nice and neatly. It's a really good way to do this. I've got it on the Kraton as well, and so far I've not bent any of these pins. I did break one of the arms off the Kraton, but I've kind of designed it the way that it's a plastic arm, so it is going to break rather than some of the metal parts breaking. So this bolt goes all the way front to back. Normally it's just a pin that sits in there loose. You can also just see the little gaskets that are in there. They are Tech Joe gaskets. If you are going to put metal onto metal, then put a gasket in between it. That way it sits nice and neatly. It's got a little bit of a cushion to it, and also you don't get dirt and stuff making its way in. Other than that, running Noble Flysky transmitter along with their 4-channel receiver in there. I can plug an extra little fan onto the motor if I want to, because there's plenty of channels in here to do it. I haven't done it so far because I think it'll be alright in the 16 tooth. However, I will check and see how I got on. Other than that, that's it folks. I hope you liked the build. I will definitely try and get some video of these things up and running, because I know I kept promising that I would do, but I have managed to get myself a little mount for the front of the transmitter. Will make a point of actually doing it. My problem is so far that I'm very rubbish at driving this and filming at the same time. I either watch one or the other, and that's not good for either. I will give it a try anyway. I'll try and get the first run so you can all get to see that. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see, please hit the like button or a thumbs up. Give me a subscription if you want to. I will try not to invade your space with too many videos. But thank you very much for watching. Thank you. Bye bye.